Hello, in this video I will be discussing Paul Freire, the founder of critical pedagogy. Freire was born to a middle-class family during the economic depression of the 1930s. When Paulo was 10, the family had to move to a smaller and cheaper city in the outskirts of Recife, although not in one of the existing favelas but in close proximity. It was nearly a decade before their fortunes changed. However, Paulo has said that during this part of his life he was desperately hungry, which made learning nearly impossible, not because of ability, but because he was too distracted by the hunger. It was also during this time that Paulo began stealing food to feed his family. He eventually had to drop out of elementary school after his father died of a heart condition. This situation exacerbated his already precarious situation in life. Building off Rousseau, Hegel, Marx, and others, Freire ontology, a branch of metaphysics, states the ultimate goal of all persons is to increase their humanity. Rather than the traditional hierarchical models of the relationship between teacher and student, where the teacher is firmly above the student, Freire proposed in his most famous work, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, published in 1967, that effective education is built upon democratic relationships between equals who are open to learning from one another. Specifically, education should allow the student to regain their sense of humanity and empower them to overcome social, economical, and political shackles. Simultaneously, teachers must be made aware of the constraints that surround education, and that the way students are taught and what they are taught serves a political agenda which serves the oppressor. Teachers themselves have political notions they bring into the classroom, and to break the cycle of oppression, they must play an active role. According to Freire, the teacher-student relationship is what allows conscientização, the critical awareness that precedes action, to develop in oppressed peoples over time. Conscientização begins with students becoming aware of that contradiction in their social, political, economic, gender, race, and class conditions, and then take action to resolve those contradictions. By working together in both goal and process, teacher and student successfully change the conditions of oppression and ultimately achieve the democratic ideal of freedom and equality for all. Dialogue is the basis for all problem-posing pedagogy and requires solidarity, a sense of equal footing, and mutual respect. According to Freire, unequal social relations create a culture of silence that instills a negative, passive, and suppressed self-image onto the oppressed. The learners must recognize that this culture of silence is intentionally created to oppress. This culture of silence can also cause the dominated individuals to lose the means by which to critically respond to the culture that is forced on them. He considers social hierarchy, race, religion, and sex to be interlaced into the conventional education system, through which this culture of silence eliminates the paths of thought that lead to a language of critique. Among the many educators, philosophers, and activists influenced by Paul Freire and his theories are Bell Hooks, Henry Giraud, Cornel West, and Jonathan Kuzel. Paulo Freire is among many educators who were mutually influenced and was influenced by liberation theology occurring in Latin America during his lifetime. This movement found itself in Catholicism in the 1960s after the Second Vatican Council, where it gained momentum from theologians such as Gustavo Gutierrez, Leonardo Boff, Father Juan Luis II, and Father John Sobrino. It was here where preferential option for the poor was first stated and written. This expression was used first by Father General Pedro Errupe in 1968, and soon after the World Synod of Catholic Bishops in 1971 chose it as its theme for justice in the world. Pedagogy of the Press has been translated into 17 languages, and its emancipatory teaching model has been adopted or adapted in many previously colonized countries on every continent. The Paul Freire Institute is currently active in 18 countries. However, Pedagogy of the Press has been banned in many, many more, even in the state of Arkansas, USA. It is important to recognize not only Paulo Freire's contribution to education, but also his influence and insistence of human freedom and love of the other, a cornerstone of Catholic leadership. With that in mind, I would like to read you a quote from Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Não é no silêncio que os homens se fazem, mas na palavra, no trabalho, na ação, reflexão. It isn't in silence where men are made, but in words, in work, in action, and reflection.